Is a recession coming in 2023? First, we'll look at Betteridge's Law, a shortcut to understand the plethora of headlines you see in your life every day. Betteridge's Law of Headlines is an adage that states any headline that ends in a question mark can be answered by the word no. It is named after Ian Betteridge, a British technology journalist who wrote about it in 2009. Although the principle is much older. Not a hard and fast rule, of course, but a good heuristic to navigate our clickbaity world. Imaging all the headlines you see all over the place, which end in a question mark, if you're just slightly curious about the answer but do not want to read the whole thing. Well, you have the shortcut now, and I will not bury the answer to this video's headline till the end. And the answer to our headline is a recession coming in 2023. Most likely not. I'll explain the clear reasons behind why I think there will not be a recession. Now, let's define what we are talking about. What is a recession? According to economists, a recession is a widespread decline in economic activity that lasts for more than a few months. This is reflected in key indicators such as real GDP, real income, employment, industrial production, and wholesale and retail sales. Now, let's put it in simple terms. A recession is a time when the economy is not performing well. During a recession, people have less money to spend and businesses are making less money, which can lead to layoffs. This creates a cycle where the economy continues to slow down. We'll come back to this in a moment when we compare our current economic climate with this statement. First, we'll see why recessions happen. Recessions can happen for different reasons. Some of the main causes are slowing economy and high interest rates can lead to a recession. Less consumer spending. If people are feeling unsure about their finances, they might spend less, causing demand for goods and services to drop and potentially leading to a recession. Housing market crashes. If housing prices suddenly drop, it can result in less consumer spending and a weak economy. Stock market crashes. A big drop in stock prices can lower consumer confidence, reduce spending, and harm the economy. Bank failures. If banks can't lend money, businesses and consumers won't be able to access loans, potentially causing a recession. Keeping the causes in mind, now let's look at some significant past recessions. First, the Great Recession of 2007 to 2009. This one was a major event that had global repercussions. It was caused by the collapse of the housing market due to subprime lending practices leading to widespread mortgage default. The dot-com bubble of 2000 to 2001. This recession was brought on by overinvestment in internet-based companies, resulting in a stock market crash and decreased spending by both consumers and businesses. The recession of 1990 to 1991. A combination of factors contributed to this recession, including the savings and loan crisis, high energy prices, and a decrease in consumer spending. The early 1980s recession. This recession was caused by high interest rates and a decrease in consumer spending due to high inflation and high unemployment. The Great Depression of 1929 to 1939. This was one of the biggest economic downturns in history, brought on by a combination of a stock market crash, bank failures, and decreased international trade. As you can see, the length of a recession can vary, but on average, they tend to last anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. Let's come back to the current time. Are we in a similar situation to any of the past recessions? Let's see. First, we're not even close to a housing market collapse. We had a hot housing market for the past 2 years, but that has been cooling in the recent months. This seems like it's part of a normal economic cycle. The regulations after the 2008 housing bubble have helped keep the fundamentals intact. Are any particular sectors overheated right now, similar to what happened in the 2000 tech bubble? Hardly. Tech in particular seems in solid footing, still with companies with literally $100 billion revenues and extremely healthy profit margins. Looking at the tech giants, Apple, Google, Facebook, and Amazon, which together constitute approximately 15% of the S&P index, are all incredibly well-managed companies. These companies are hugely profitable and still growing, and no other sector seems shaky. We do have high energy prices right now, particularly the price of gas. The trend of gas prices has been going down recently, and this does not seem like it's a systemic issue. We don't have anything close to the systemic issues that happened during the Great Depression of 1929. The most similar economic situation to the current one was the one that caused the early 1980s recession, which, as we just saw, was caused by high inflation and high unemployment. We definitely do have high inflation right now. The annual inflation rate for the United States is 6.5% for the 12 months ended December 2022 after rising 7.1% previously, according to U.S. Labor Department data published Jan 12. But there are a lot of differences between then and now. The inflation this time was initially triggered by a bunch of factors like the stimulus money that the government sent out and the COVID supply chain crunch, the effects of which have been subsiding recently. An important thing to note is that inflation seems to have peaked in the last couple of months, which might not seem like it would be good news, but it really is. The key thing to look at is not the absolute numbers, but the trend. Trends are always more important, and inflation seems to have peaked and has started trending down. Next, let's look at the supply chain issues. Until recently, China was under lockdown due to the COVID-19 pandemic. China has already announced a relaxation of its COVID-19 quarantine protocols in response to widespread protests over the country's strict restrictions. Companies have also moved big parts of their supply chain away from China in a bid to avoid situations like this and to prevent issues in one country from disrupting the flow of their product. Now, let's talk about something that has been overlooked called the pull forward in demand. This refers to a phenomenon where consumers accelerate their purchases of goods and services in anticipation of a future event or change that might affect their availability or price. This can result in a temporary increase in demand for a product or service, but it also means that some of the demand that would have occurred later is pulled forward into the present time period. We had a pull forward in demand in 2021 that was primarily driven by the COVID-19 pandemic and the related lockdowns and restrictions that affected many countries. With people spending more time at home and uncertainty around the future, there was a surge in demand for certain goods and services, such as home furnishings, electronics, and online entertainment. When consumers pull demand forward, it can cause an artificial spike in demand and a temporary boost to economic activity. However, this can also mean that some of the future demand is fulfilled earlier than expected, potentially leading to a slowdown in demand in the future. And this future is what we are living in now. The thing, though, is that this weakening is temporary and we are seeing signs of growth, stabilizing, and even picking up in a few sectors. Next, let's look at the jobs market. There have been pockets of layoffs in industries like tech, but this can be clearly explained by the vastly increased hiring that these companies did in 2021 as well as early 2022. This also matches what we saw earlier about the pull forward in demand in 2021. The majority of industries other than tech are strong with increasing job growth and wages. And so, as we have seen, due to the strong fundamentals, inflation and supply chain issues subsiding, lack of any systemic issues, and the extremely resilient jobs market, no. A recession in 2023 is very unlikely, but still, really unlikely things can sometimes happen. How do we prepare for a recession if we don't have one now? If you are in an income-earning age, you are likely to see a recession in your life. How to live a recession-proof life, so to speak. One of the most important things you can do is to start saving. The more you have in the bank, the more cushion you have to fall back on if things get tough. Another great strategy is to build a recession-proof portfolio. This means investing in a variety of assets that are likely to hold up well during an economic downturn. For example, you might consider investing in bonds or real estate. Owning a home is another smart move during a recession. Even when the economy is struggling, people still need a place to live. If you own your home, you can rent rooms out to others in times of a recession and generate some extra income to help you weather the storm. And if you're still living in the home, you have the peace of mind of knowing that you have a roof over your head and a steady stream of rental income to help you cover your expenses. Of course, there's a lot more to it than just these tips. We'll dive into this topic more in future videos, so stay tuned. Please subscribe to the channel and give this video a like to show your appreciation. The algorithm loves it, and you know what? So do we. Thank you.